Welcome to Classic Trials. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we make sense of the law one bite at a time. In this series, we observe and analyze the play-by-play of some of the biggest trials that have shaped the public consciousness of the American judicial system. In this season, we're working our way through the case of California v. Erik and Lyle Menendez. Growing up in Princeton, New Jersey, and then Beverly Hills, California, these young men had everything they could ever want, or so it seemed, until one night on August 20th, 1989, they approached Jose and Kitty Menendez with newly purchased shotguns. Put on trial for murdering their own parents, they claimed self-defense, arguing they were terrorized in their own home by abusive parents until they could take no more. Which argument is more convincing? Come join and see for yourself.
I just realized I did everything. I set everything up, and then I had Holmes sitting right here. I have Indy sitting all perked up wonderfully. And then I pulled out the drawer to start giving them treats, and there's only two tiny little treats left. I'm sorry, guys. I failed you. I failed you, Holmes. I know he's like smelling at the desk right now. I'm sorry, puppers. She's telling me I betrayed her. Anyway, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. I hope you're having a wonderful Monday. We are now at episode 43 of this trial. It's crazy. It's crazy because although, it should be like episode 50 something, but because of the number of weeks that I had to take off for all kinds of stuff, but it's been, I believe, over a year now since we started on this journey of going through this trial and analyzing it and all that. So it's been such a journey, and I really appreciate you guys sticking out with me and watching this entire trial with me. This has been quite the journey. So welcome. Also, Mountain Princess 207. Thank you so much for gifting. Look at this. StreamYard will allow me to show these on screen now. Amazing. So Mountain Princess 207, thank you so much for gifting. The first Legal Bites membership was AB Short Clips. You've been gifted a membership, so welcome to Bite Club. And then the next one is Jessica was gifted a membership. Then after that was this one here, Mountain Princess 207 gifted one Legal Bites membership to Karen Vaughn. And then Darius Kane is the last one. Oh, I think. Wait, did I miss some? Oh my gosh. Wait, did I? Oh, I think I missed Analytical Blarney AB also got one. Okay, so there were 5. So yeah, you guys, thank you so much. Mountain Princess 207, that is so kind of you for starting off this wonderful Monday in this wonderful live stream with some gifted memberships. So to those of you now members of Bite Club, I hope to see you on Friday for our weekly members only live stream. So where we just kind of chill and hang out. I talk to the chat. It's incredibly unstructured. So yeah, I hope you can join us. Let's see here. If you haven't already, please do like the stream because it does help to sort of push this whole thing out into the YouTube metaverse, if that's what we're calling it nowadays. I don't know. I'm just talking. I'm just saying things. I'm saying words. Words are coming out of my mouth. Okay, so let's get to the substance, shall we? This is part 3 of Erik's testimony. As I was clicking through to, make sure that I was going through ads and all that kind of stuff to see, where some timestamps would be, I can tell we're gonna get into some really, really tough stuff again today. I anticipate every single time we hear from Erik, it's gonna be really difficult. So Draco Amy, wonderful mod here with the trigger warnings early. She'll be putting those in the chat. I'll be trying to I'll save a couple of these and we'll be throwing them on screen from time to time throughout the stream because I anticipate there's going to be just a lot of stuff in this one that's going to be triggering for anybody that has gone through any kind of abuse, whether that's SA, physical, mental, emotional, any of that stuff. So trigger warning, if you need, step away for a while or catch the next stream. Look after yourself 100%. And also Draco Amy often puts in self-helpline numbers, not self-help, but helpline numbers for various countries. So we'll be tossing those on the screen as well, just to make sure that everybody takes care of themselves, because it's not, of course I love having people here on the stream with me, but don't put your own mental health at risk. If you need to, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. Let's see here. I think that's about it. Oh, here it is. Thank you so much, Draco Amy. And thank you also to the other mods that we've got in the chat here. I see we've got Shireen, we've got, we've got Sandy here. And I think, oh yeah, Debbie Faison Cook, I saw her also. So, folks, thank you so much for helping to of course, usher the conversation very well, because I love the conversations that happen in the chat. I don't always engage directly with them on these streams, but I do see them. And I love the fact that people, have different opinions, that they're bringing their different brains into the chat, and coming to different conclusions sometimes as we go through this. So it's been fascinating. And I love the fact that people are doing it in a respectful and kind way that respects the dignity of people that think otherwise. So let's make sure that we keep that, keep that going as always. But you guys are so good at it. It's like, I feel like I don't even really need to say anything about it. But otherwise, with that, let's get to it, shall we? Okay.
Both defendants are present, and all counsel as well. And to everyone, good morning. And we're ready to resume with the direct testimony of the defendant, Erik Menendez. Would you state your name again for the record, please?
Erik Menendez.
All right, I'll remind you, you're still under oath. You may resume your direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Menendez, when we left off yesterday, we were talking about Saturday night, August 19th, 1989. You recall that after the argument with your mother, you and your brother went outside and had another talk. You recall that?
Yes.
And what did you do after the talk with your brother?
I went upstairs to my room.
And did you take the gun with you, or did you leave it?
No, I took the gun.
And had you done anything to change the 2 rounds that you had previously put in the gun?
No.
And when you got up to your room, you put the gun down where?
On the side of my bed.
And you showed us on the photograph yesterday where that was?
Yes.
And then what did you do after you had put the gun down?
I just waited. I waited around my desk. I was looking out the window toward the guest house.
Why?
Just because looking at Lyle gave me a lot of comfort. So I just wanted to see what he was doing.
And do you have any idea how late it was at this point?
1:30 in the morning, maybe 2.
And did you think you were in a condition at that point to go to sleep?
No.
And why was that you didn't think you could go to sleep?
I was real nervous. I was real tense. I was real scared, and I just couldn't get to sleep. My nerves were fried.
Had you gotten undressed? Had you prepared to go to sleep?
No.
And at some point after you were in your room for a while, did you hear something or someone approaching?
Yes.
And what sounds did you hear?
Just footsteps coming toward my room.
And had you locked the door to your room as you previously testified you usually did?
Yes. Oh, yes, I locked the room.
And did you have any indication from the sound of whose footsteps they were?
I didn't know for sure, but I was hoping it wasn't Dad. I was wrong.
You'd rather it were Mom?
Yeah.
And after the footsteps, did you hear something else?
Yeah, my dad started pounding on my door and telling me to open the goddamn door.
And from the voice, you knew it was Dad and not Mom?
Overruled as to the question, but let's not refer to them as your dad and mom. They're his father and mother. So let's refer to that context.
Okay.
Okay, maybe this is a 1993 thing, but like, I feel like that I've never heard of any courtroom where they're like, you must refer to someone in a particular way, even if that's not the way that you would naturally say it. Like, allow the witness to testify in a way that is natural to them. That's just so artificial. Blah. I hate that.
Do you refer to your parents? How do you refer to your parents when you talk about them?
Mom and dad.
Dad and mom.
There you go.
So could you tell who the person was on the other side of the door?
Yes, it was Dad.
Okay. And what did your father say?
He was pounding on the door and telling me to. He was pounding on the door and with his fist, I guess, and telling me to open the goddamn door.
You have to stay back a little bit. You're popping the mic. Why don't you try to put your back against the back of the chair and keep it there if you could? Okay? All right. And what was your reaction? What did you do, if anything, after you heard your father say, open the door?
I ran toward my gun and grabbed it.
Okay. You had been somewhere else in the room?
Yeah, I
besides
was sort of sitting on the desk looking out the window, and the gun was around the side of the desk underneath the bed. And so I just ran around and grabbed the gun.
And what did you do after you grabbed the gun?
I sat on my bed with my gun right across.
Excuse me. Photograph, if I may approach you. Do you have a photograph in front of you, Mr. Menendez?
Yes.
What's the next number you're on? 269. 69.
But imagine though that if Jose had actually managed to like barge his way into the room, I feel like this case would have had a very different outcome, because it sounds like Erik was totally prepared to use that gun in that moment. So it's interesting to think about, like, in an alternate universe, like what would have happened. I think that would have been very, very different for a jury to be looking at and be like, oh, he barged into his room, and this is with this ongoing abuse, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the abuse part, it was still 1993. So that's still an issue, more so an issue back then than it is today. But the circumstances of Jose barging into Erik's room for whatever reason, and obviously he sounded very angry, is a very different circumstance than what a lot of people struggle with, which is the parents went into the living room, and they were sitting and watching TV, or in there, and they had the TV on, whatever you believe, because the prosecution here is trying to paint that particular scene as no, they were sitting and eating ice cream and blueberries or whatever, when the boys came in and shot them. Lyle says that his father was standing, which is a very different, much more exigent sort of situation, because Jose could have done something to, lurch forward. But this kind of a scene, if it had gone down this way, it would have been very, very different. Interesting. All right, let's continue.
I'd like to mark this 269. It's a photo depicting what room of the house is that?
My bedroom.
And does this particular photograph show your bed?
Yes.
This photograph shows a lot of stuff on your bed.
Yes.
Was all that stuff on your bed that Saturday night?
No.
And you said you sat on your bed with the gun?
Yes.
Would you circle the area in that photograph where you sat on the bed? We have to use the cork here. And from that place, from the foot of your bed where you circled, in what direction is the door that leads into your bedroom?
It's directly across from it, a little to the left.
So it's opposite the foot of the bed and a little to the left?
Yes.
And what was your emotional state with your father banging on the door and demanding that you open it?
I was so scared. I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought my dad was going to break down the door. I certainly wasn't opening the door, and I was just holding the gun across my lap, shaking, and I didn't know what was going to happen.
You didn't unlock the door on this occasion?
No.
And why was that? Why didn't you unlock the door on this occasion?
Because I was afraid I wasn't going to let my dad in again. He hadn't talked to me all weekend, and now he was suddenly pounding on my door and yelling, and I was scared. I didn't know what was going to happen.
Did the conversation and the argument that you had with your mother earlier that evening have anything to do with your not being willing to open the door?
Sustained.
Was there anything that had happened earlier that evening that contributed to your unwillingness to open the door, or to the way you were feeling, or both?
To the way I was feeling, more than not. But yes, it was partly what Mom said to me, and partly just how my dad was yelling and pounding on the door, and the fact that Lyle was all the way across in the guest house.
Okay. Did you, how long did this go on with your father pounding and yelling?
Maybe a minute.
And what was going through your mind during that minute?
What was going through my mind was he was going to break down the door.
And what were you going to do? Were you thinking, what would you do?
Yeah.
Wait for the question, please. If he broke down the door?
I was going to shoot. I was just going to shoot.
And did you think you would be able to do that?
I really didn't think I'd be able to.
Why not?
I was just frozen. I was shaking, and I knew what he was going to do. Or at least I thought he was going to break down the door. And I was saying, I got to shoot him. I got to shoot him. And I remembered I only had 2 shells in my gun. And I was saying, oh my God, I'm going to die. Because if I miss him or if I hit him, Mom's still in the house. Lyle's all the way in the guest house. And I didn't know what was going to happen.
And were you also said just now that you didn't know that you would be able to shoot him. Did you think if the door had flung open and your father was standing there, what did you think you would or wouldn't do?
I don't know. I was frozen. I don't know what I was going to do.
Did you in fact do anything but sit on the bed holding the gun?
No, I couldn't move.
And eventually, did your father stop pounding on the door?
Yes.
And did he say anything when he stopped?
He said that I was going to have to come out of that room tomorrow.
I'm sorry.
He said I was going to have to come out of that room tomorrow.
And did you hear footsteps, or did he leave, or what?
He left. I don't remember if I heard the footsteps or not, but I didn't know where he was, what he was doing.
And what did you do after that?
I just sat on the bed for a little while, and then looked out toward the guest house to see if I could sort of wave Lyle down, but I couldn't. And I wasn't leaving that room. So I just waited.
Let me ask you something. You heard Detective Zoller testifying yesterday that your room, the windows in your room don't open to the guest house. Do you remember him saying that?
Yes.
Is he right or wrong?
No, he's wrong.
In fact, your room has windows on 2 sides, or had windows on 2 sides.
Both sides of the desk, one right across from the bed and one right before the bathroom.
And that's on, looking in that photograph, Mr. Menendez, in what direction are the windows? To the left, to the right, or straight ahead?
To the left.
And both of those windows face what direction?
The guest house.
They face east, like towards Maple Drive?
Yes.
And the back of your room, behind the bed, for example, that wall, does that wall face south?
I guess that would be south.
Is there a window on that wall also, the one behind your bed?
Yeah, but it's covered by the bed. It's a long, tall window, and it's covered by the bed.
So there's windows on 2 different walls of the room?
Yes.
When you were sitting on the bed and your father was outside the door, did you have any thoughts about whether or not 2 rounds of ammunition could or couldn't kill someone?
I didn't think it'd be able to kill my dad, but even if it did, I knew my mom had a gun in her room and in her closet, and I thought maybe I'd have to jump out the window. All these thoughts were going through my mind.
How did you know your mother had a gun?
Because she bought the gun the year before.
Did you think there was 1 gun in the house, or did you think there were more than 1 gun in the house?
No, there were 2 rifles and I believed it was a pellet gun, but I knew there were 2 rifles.
You popped a pellet gun, you said?
There was a 3rd gun, I thought, that was a pellet gun.
And
But-
was that a long gun, like a BB rifle, or was it a pistol type pellet?
No, it was a long gun.
Now, with respect to one of these rifles, you say that you knew that your mother had purchased it a year before.
Yes,
And how did you know she bought a gun a year before?
because I was with her
And where did she buy it?
in Woodland Hills it's right across the street from the Topanga Mall. I think at the time it was called Sports Mart or something like that.
Okay. And how did you come to be with her when she was purchasing a gun?
I don't remember how I came to be with her. We were in her Mercedes. She had a convertible, and she said I had to get something or something like that. And we went into the Sports Mart, and I sort of just wandering around because all the sports things. And she bought the gun. She came out with it.
And you met up with her again outside the store?
I don't remember if I met up with her before, but I remember walking toward the car and asking her what was that, because she had a long box, and she opened it up before she got in the trunk.
And she showed you?
Yes.
And did you, and it appeared to be what? What was in the box?
It was a wooden, partly engraved, brown and black gun, long rifle.
And did you ask her anything about it?
Yeah, I asked her, why'd you buy that?
And what did she say?
She said, I'm going to kill somebody.
Whoa.
Actually, she said, I'm going to kill someone.
Someone. And did you ask her who?
No. I had some ideas, though.
Did you ask her why?
No, I didn't ask her a single question after that. She just put it in the trunk.
Well, why wouldn't you ask your mother, or why didn't you ask your mother who she was going to kill or why she had bought a gun?
Because
Objection, I believe, as you're saying, Mr. Menendez goes to state of mind. I'm checking at this point.
Well, the question is, why would he or did he ask the question? So at this point, it's not hearsay. It just goes to a state of mind, and it's not
I'll
anything else.
withdraw the question. But right, you're with your mother. She's bought a gun. She says she's going to kill someone. Is that right?
yes,
Is your family the kind of family where you ask each other a lot of questions, communicate a lot?
no, you don't ask each other a lot of questions, especially with my mom, the way she was. She was doing a lot of strange things, and at the time, she was really taking her medication heavily. She was taking like 13, 15 pills a day. She was disappearing a lot, and she was going into a lot of her rages often suddenly. And I was afraid of her. I mean, afraid of her outbursts and so on, and the fact that she wasn't completely stable and so on. So I thought I knew why she bought the gun.
Well, did you think she bought it to kill herself, to kill your father, to kill you? What? To kill a stranger? To kill birds? What?
Speculation.
All right, it just will reflect the witness's state of mind, and
Yeah.
for no other reason. You may answer the question, what was your state of mind?
Okay, she didn't tell me why. What I thought was that she was either going to kill Louise or one of my dad's other girlfriends, or she was going to kill Dad. I was hoping the latter
Yeah, you were hoping the latter for your sake, for her sake?
for
her
my sake, so that the sex would end.
Now, do you remember the date of this purchase of the rifle by your mother?
I know it was the summer.
I don't know why, but for some reason I forgot about all of the cheating that Jose had been doing, and that was the reason why Kitty was like so mad at him and all this other stuff. So there's just been so much in this trial that forgive me for forgetting Jose's philandering on top of everything else.
Summer before. I don't remember the date.
Do you think it would refresh your recollection if I showed you the receipt for the purchase of the gun?
Yes.
I have a white piece of paper on which is scotch taped a yellow credit card receipt. Can I mark that 270?
Yes.
First of all, Mr. Menendez, let me call your attention to the signature on the bottom of this page. Do you recognize the handwriting?
Yes, it's my mom's handwriting.
And do you recognize this as a receipt for the purchase of a .22 caliber rifle or .22 caliber gun?
Yes. I was just looking at what the store was.
The receipt just says Best Products, Northridge, California. Is that right?
Yeah, that wasn't where though. It was bought.
Can't hear you.
Oh, that wasn't where it was bought. I don't know why the receipt says that, but
It wasn't the name of the store, but that's the imprint on the
Judge
receipt.
Lee,
Sustained.
You don't remember the name of the store being Best Products? You
no, it wasn't Best Products. I don't believe. I thought it was Sport Smart. It was right across from the Topanga Mall.
Okay, does this appear to be a receipt from the summer of 1989 for the purchase of a rifle by your mother?
Yes.
And what's the date on the receipt? Can you read it? The month is in the middle.
88.
She said the month is in the middle, but when she said that, my brain was like, the monkey's in the middle? I guess because I'm going back to like where I was in 1993, which was trying to not be monkey in the middle in the back seat with my older brothers. Anyway, sorry. Mini side quest. Let's get back.
6/29/88.
June 29th, 1988.
Yes.
And does that refresh your recollection as to when it was that you were with your mother at a store where she bought a rifle?
Yes.
Now, returning to that Saturday night, you said your thought was that even if you could unfreeze enough to shoot the 2 rounds, that you thought your mother might be right there with the gun that she had bought.
Yes. Well, I didn't think she was right behind the door, but I thought she'd get her gun.
Now, did you telephone your brother to tell him what had happened?
No,
Why not?
because I didn't want my parents to know that I was calling my brother.
And if the phone had rung at that hour of the night, what do you think your parents would have done?
Or they would have picked it up.
Did you ever get to sleep that Saturday night?
Yes.
And when you went to sleep, approximately what time was it?
I'm not sure. Maybe 4:30. I was exhausted and I just fell asleep with my clothes on in the bed. I didn't look at the clock.
And do you recall getting up again later that morning?
Yes.
Do you have any idea what time it was that you got up?
I woke up out of my nightmare and I just woke up and I saw that it was daylight. So I just, I don't remember if I took a shower. I'm not sure. I just went over to Lyle's guest house.
Do you know what time you woke up? Yes or no?
No, I don't.
Okay. But after you woke up, first of all, before you went to Lyle's guest house, did you determine whether or not your parents were awake or still in their room or what?
I listened at the door to see if they were outside, and I figured they probably were not outside of it. So I opened it up, and I can see my parents' windows, but I can't see their bed from my room. I can only see if the light's on or off. And I thought they were probably still inside.
Did you hear any sounds that told you they were outside the bedroom?
No.
So did you leave the house?
Yes.
And did you take the gun with you or did you leave it in your bedroom?
I put it in my closet.
And did you hide it in some way or conceal it in some way?
Yes.
And then you went to the guest house and did you see your brother there?
Yes. He opened up the door.
And did you tell him about the night before?
Yes.
About what had happened in your room?
Yeah, I told him what happened with Dad.
And did you then leave the house?
Yes.
And did you have any kind of understanding with your brother about your coming back at any point during the course of the day?
Yeah, I had told him, I believe, that I would come back around noon or somewhere around there.
And what was the purpose of your coming back at noon or somewhere around there?
Partly because Lyle just didn't want to be in the house all day alone, not knowing what my parents were going to do, and partly because I was so worried. I wanted to know if they had talked.
Now, what was the purpose of your brother staying there that day versus you leaving?
So that so we wouldn't be together, and the other so that Lyle would be able to stay home and sort of hang around my parents to see any signs, to see what they what kind of mood they were in, whether he thought they were still going to kill us, or whether they were just angry, or whether they actually wanted to talk. Just sort of get a feel and hopefully start a conversation.
And as of that Sunday morning, was that a sunny day?
It was a sunny day. I wasn't very hopeful that anything was going to happen.
Were you fearful that morning, or was it like another sunny day and you didn't want to think about it?
No, I was fearful. I mean, from Saturday night, that was the idea for Lyle to stay home and see if Mom and Dad would talk. But after what happened the night before, I just wanted to get out of the house, and I didn't think that Dad was going to be in too good of a mood.
So you didn't think anything, did you consider whether or not anything had improved in the family?
No, I thought things were getting worse.
And let me go back with you for a moment. From Tuesday night, when you first revealed things to your brother, until Thursday night when your father attacked you, between those 2 days, what was your general emotional state? Before you knew that Dad had been threatened, before Dad came after you, what was your general
Again,
emotional
let's refer to him as his father and not yours.
No, it certainly wasn't mine.
Okay, then rephrase the question.
What was your emotional?
That's such a dumb rule that he has. A dumb rule that he has. I mean, I understand when you have a witness that's in the courtroom, and addressing them as Mr. something or Miss something or Mrs. something, like being more formal and on that front, I understand it. But this whole thing about that he has to change the way that he talks about the people in his life, the people that he's testifying about, is just so stupid, because it's taking away a layer of I guess you could say authenticity to what he's testifying to. It's probably like, at the end of the day, does it make a difference in terms of his guilt or innocence? No, probably not. But it's just such a dumb rule that just adds a layer for him to think about as he's testifying. It's just dumb. This is the first time I've seen any judge be like this, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
Emotional state between Tuesday night and Thursday before you were confronted by your father in your bedroom?
I was just real anxious about what the conversation between, before Thursday I got home.
Before Thursday you got home, yes.
Yeah, I was just real anxious about what Lyle's conversation with Dad how it was gonna turn out. I was sort of praying it would turn out well, and worrying that it wasn't.
So you were worried and anxious, is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Now, after Thursday, after the confrontation with your father in your bedroom, did your emotional state change?
After Thursday, yes.
Okay. And how would you describe, and did that emotional state continue throughout from Thursday to Sunday?
You mean the fear? It sort of
Is that
went
what
up.
your emotional state was? Was it fear?
Yes.
And was there any point from Thursday night until Sunday when you're leaving the house when you were not frightened?
No.
Now, did the level of fear remain the same at all times during those few days, or did it change, or what?
No, it changed. At times it really shot up, like on Saturday night, or when my mom said what she said, or right before the fishing trip. And other times, like on Friday morning, it dropped, and I thought, this can't be happening, and this isn't happening, and just tried to push it away.
Did it ever disappear, though, the sense of fear?
Oh, no.
From Thursday night to Sunday night, what was your state of mind with respect to whether or not you thought your parents were going to kill you?
Well, I always thought they were going to kill me.
And was there any change over that period in how soon, how immediate you felt their potential of killing you was between Thursday night and Sunday morning?
Yes.
And up until this point, Sunday morning, at which point did you think their threat of killing you was most immediate?
Right before, the night before, Saturday night.
When your father is outside the door.
Yes.
So you leave home Sunday, and did you come back midday like you had indicated to your brother that you would?
Yes.
And when you came back, was there a conversation with him such as he has testified to, where he told you what he thought was strange and what was going on in the house?
No, I don't believe he had actually gone into the house yet.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, I was saying, Lyle, the whole idea is for you to be able to find out what's going on. And I said, I don't care if you're afraid to go in the house. You got to go in the house, because if you don't go in the house, we don't know what's happening. And
Did he seem afraid?
yeah, he did not want to go in the house. He was doing his usual stalling and pretending that he had, that he was going to do it. And I thought that he might be scared to do it. Well, I knew he was scared to do it, but
Okay,
so I was just telling him, you got to go in the house, because I wasn't going in.
so did you park somewhere where you believed your car would not be observed?
Yeah, I parked in the back alley.
Is there a fence that separates your property from the alley? A solid fence?
Yeah, there's the fence of the tennis court, and then the fence of a walkway, and then the guest house. And there's a long alley that runs all the way down the houses.
If someone is on your property and the fence is there and the gate is closed, could someone see your car from on the property?
No.
Is that why you parked back there?
Well, yes.
Why did you park back there?
Well, so my parents wouldn't know I was home.
By the way, a couple questions here that came up in chat asking about guns in America. What a topic, right? Igloo Pop, why were their parents buying guns? Guess has America really have no clue if that's normal? And then also Angelica Gonzalez, not everybody in America carries guns in their homes, right? There definitely are a lot of people who do carry guns in America. Not everyone does, though. There are. I honestly don't know what the statistics are on how many, who carries guns and who doesn't. Different jurisdictions are easier or harder to own a gun. New York, for example, is very difficult. Texas, for example, is very not difficult. So I think people that tend to own a gun will often own more than one gun, because oftentimes it's, a lot of times they're enthusiasts, right? And then there are plenty of people in the United States who also feel very uncomfortable with the idea of having a gun in their home, and understandably so. So you'll find a wide range of people on that spectrum in the United States. But I would say there are a lot of people who do own guns. So the idea that someone, went out and bought a gun is not on its own alarming necessarily. The way in which they bought it in this case is very different than what would happen now, because there are many more restrictions now than there were in 1993. I have not gone into all of the details myself to learn what all the restrictions are nowadays, because I don't own one personally. Surprise, surprise, I'm living overseas, right? But anyway, so I'm sure we could get some folks, we could get Kurt from Uncivil Law in here to talk about, owning a gun in Texas. We could get Ian in here to talk about owning a gun in Canada, right? Because in Canada, there are folks that also have guns. Ian is very, very public about that as well. So anyway, yeah, it's long story short, there are quite a few. There are quite a few folks that do own guns in the United States.
And did you leave again after you talked to your brother midday?
Yes.
And did you get home late that night or later that night?
Yes.
Did you get home later than you had told your brother you would?
Yes.
And what was it? What feeling, if any, kept you from getting home earlier?
I just didn't want to be at home, and I just really didn't want to have contact with my dad.
Why? What were you feeling?
I was scared. And I was supposed to meet home around 7:30 or 8 or something like that. And I didn't get home till much later.
And when you did get home much later, did you see your brother again in the guest house?
Yes.
And did you have a conversation with him?
Yes.
And did he then tell you of things that affected the way you felt?
Yes.
And the things that he told you, how did they affect the way you felt? What effect did it have?
It made me realize that something was going to happen.
Well, hadn't you thought something was going to happen all week?
Oh, I thought,
Had you had any similar thoughts over the course of the week?
I knew something was going to happen, but I was hoping that things were going to turn the other way as soon as Lyle had a conversation with Mom or Dad, and he did, and it made me realize that something was definitely going to happen.
Well, based on what Lyle told you, you're telling us what you independently felt, that in your own mind something was definitely going to happen. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
It's not that your brother had to tell you that.
Objection, Lee. Sustained.
You knew
She
your
is-
parents
she is-
also, did you not?
Yes.
Leslie is very much skirting that leading line throughout this testimony. She's definitely, having a good conversation with Erik, on, his to facilitate his testimony, which is good. It's very good because it makes him feel more at ease. And I'm very sorry to Erik that I paused on this unflattering frame. One sec.
You had- At your own.
Okay, that's a little bit better. But she is, in her natural way of speaking, she's also a very dominant person. So, she's also she is going there every now and then with leading. So these objections are coming in. Prosecution is really paying close attention to everything that she's saying here. And yeah, occasionally they're getting her. But is it messing up her flow? No, she's not allowing any of that to mess up the flow of her questions and the conversation between them. So she's obviously, as we can tell by this point, that she's a very skilled trial attorney here.
Your own relationships with them.
Yes, I knew them in some ways better than Lyle.
And based on what he told you, did you, within your own head, without any prompting from him, feel things were about to happen?
Yes.
Was there a decision made between you and your brother about leaving?
Yeah, I said, we got to get out of here. And Lyle said, we got to tell Mom and Dad.
Well, what was the reason why you had to tell them? If you were afraid of them and you thought something was going to happen, why don't you just sneak out the back and go away?
Because I had parked in the front, first of all. And the second of all, we could have avoided them, but he wanted them to he just wanted to say, we're going out and we'll be back, and just, I guess, calm things.
Was there a rule in the family that you were supposed to let your parents know when you were leaving the house, going out for the evening?
No, not always. Not
And
always.
on this night, you felt that they should be told?
Objection, Lee. Sustained.
Why did you tell them on this night if there was no such rule?
Because we were trying to pretend as if everything was calm. We didn't think anything was going on, and we were just going out to the movies, and we wanted them to know where we were so that they wouldn't suddenly do something right away.
So they wouldn't think that you were where? You wanted them to know where you were, so
Yes.
they wouldn't think you were where or doing what?
Well,
Did you want? All right, were you concerned about whether or not your father would think that Lyle was making good on his threat
yes,
to tell?
yes.
So did you want them to know where you were?
No, that's part of the reason.
Leading round.
Objection sustained. The answer is stricken.
She's definitely trying to get him to a particular answer.
What was your thoughts about what you thought your father or mother might be worried about with respect to the two of you?
Objection, Lee.
Overall.
We wanted them to know where we were. I mean, we couldn't avoid it on Friday, so we tried to stay home part of the time. But, most of that weekend, we wanted them to not to think that we were telling anyone or going any place to do that. And so we were trying to keep them apprised as much as possible of what we were up to so that they wouldn't think that. And
Okay.
that's part of the reason Lyle stayed home.
So did you and your brother then go to the house in order to tell your mother that you were leaving.
Yes.
And can you tell us what happened when you got to the house?
I went, we went through the kitchen to the back area, and Lyle went through the kitchen, and then there's the den. I don't know if you have the diagram.
Yeah, we have the diagram.
Yes.
Take the pointer, but remember that the microphone is there. Don't turn away. Okay, then would you show us with the pointer? Are you oriented on the diagram?
Yeah.
Can you see it? Do you need your glasses, which are in front of you?
Yeah, that would help. The diagram isn't exactly right.
Well, rather than
It's
correct
really off.
the diagram,
All right.
if I'm in a cursor,
Yeah, it's easy enough.
just slow down. This is the front door. You understand that?
Yes.
Okay. And when you entered the house through the front door, was there a living room to the right and that paneled study to the left?
Yes.
And then was there a dining room beyond?
Yes.
Now, is this what's throwing you? This indication of stairs?
Yeah,
There are
partly.
no stairs. There are.
No, there are no stairs here. There's no door there, and there should be a door there.
Okay. And there are stairs here.
Yes.
And these stairs go up the top story. Is that correct?
Yes.
I don't understand how someone could get this diagram so wrong. Like that's embarrassing in my opinion, that whoever made this diagram, I mean, because the movement between rooms is important to this case. So having the option of various doors going to various rooms, stairs being there, stairs not being there, that to me is embarrassing. I don't know whose demonstrative this is. If I can't remember if this is the prosecution's or if this is the defense. But personally, I'm kind of judging that a little bit. That the fact that these errors are in this demonstrative.
Now, this is what's called the family room. This is the room ultimately where you shot your parents. Is that right?
Yes, I call that the den, though.
Okay, you called it the den, and the family called this the study?
The study.
All right, forgetting the labels for the moment. Kitchen's here.
Yes.
There's a service porch, and it opens to where?
To the back side of the patio.
To the backyard?
Yeah.
Is
There's
there a tennis court
a
back?
tennis court right here, and then there's a walkway here.
And then there's a maid's room here,
Yes.
and there's an exit from the maid's room to the side yard. Is that right?
Yeah, that was hardly ever used. It was usable, though. Yes.
There, though, was it?
Yes.
Okay. Now, turn.
Okay, counsel, let's put
Yeah.
that copy down and
I'm sorry,
put it in a place where it won't be an obstacle to examination.
Now, turn this way for a minute and describe. how you
Oh,
came in the
particular.
house. And then you can show us on the diagram, okay? Okay, now describe it.
We came through the kitchen area, and I didn't want to go into the den. So Lyle went into the den, and I guess said he was going out, or we were going out. I'm not sure. I went through the dining room into the foyer.
Through a door that doesn't show on that diagram, is that right?
Yeah, I went right through here. Lyle went through here.
Okay, so you.
Also, just an update from my last comment. Care Bear says, I think this is a diagram made by the owner of the house who built it, of an early layout of the house. He testifies later on, and that's why it's inaccurate. Oh, interesting. That's interesting. I appreciate that, Care Bear, because that clarification definitely helps. Still though, I don't like it being used if it's not accurate. That's my opinion. It might not be worth much, but that's my opinion.
So you walked. First of all, you went in through what doors from the outside? How'd you get into the house at all?
I think we went through the service area. We may have gone through the breakfast room. I'm not sure.
Were there doors that led from the breakfast room to the backyard tennis court area?
Yeah, those are missing too.
It's French doors?
Yeah, there should be French doors right there.
And then there's also a door that leads right into the service porch?
Yeah, right there.
Okay, so you went through one of those and you went into the kitchen, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Now, between the kitchen and the dining room, there was a door, was there not?
Yes.
And could you go through that door without being observed by people in the den?
Yes.
And you could also, however, from there, go straight into the den?
Yes.
What I'd like you to do, I'd like you to draw on that diagram the door that you went through approximately, in the approximate position between the kitchen and the dining room. Can you do that, you think?
Sure.
Here's a pen. Okay, if you're whispering to me, it doesn't make any difference. Nobody can hear
there's a
you.
door right there.
Uh,
One of those doors that come open like this.
Swings open.
Yeah. There's a door there, and there's a door there.
And when you're in, stay here for 1 second.
There's no door there.
There's no door there, so you're drawing a solid line on the other side of the dining room.
Yes.
And on the ground level, there's no stairs here either, is there?
No.
And this, what's called the entry here, what did your family call this area?
The foyer.
Now, after you had gone into the dining room, could you hear what was going on in the den with your brother and whoever he was talking to?
Well, Lyle, I guess, was sort of walking out, and so my mom came out because the conversation took place.
He was walking.
Lyle was coming through here, and my mom and Lyle I saw talking right there.
Well, why did your brother go into the den and you go into the dining room? Why'd you split up?
Because I didn't want to go into the den.
And he went into the den for what purpose?
To tell them that we were going out.
And did you then cut through the dining room and go out into the foyer?
Yeah, I went right down into here, actually. There's no door, but it's like an arch that leads into the living room.
All right, but to come through the dining room, is there a door that leads from the dining room to the foyer?
Yeah, I went through the dining room door that leads to the foyer and across the foyer into the archway.
So you were waiting for your brother in the archway?
Yes.
And at that point, did you see your brother or hear your brother?
Yes.
Which first?
I think I saw him. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure which I heard first. I think I saw him.
Okay. And when you saw him, did you see your mother as well?
Yes.
And where were they?
They were right in front of the bathroom area, right? This is the bathroom. And then the foyer starts right there.
Okay. What did you hear being said as between your mother and your brother?
I heard my mom saying that Lyle and I couldn't go out, and Lyle asking Mom why can't we go out, and her saying because she started to stutter. She didn't answer.
And was there anything about that you thought was noteworthy or important?
Yeah, I started to get the chills right then.
Why?
Because they were saying we couldn't go out, and that means that we were going to have to be in the house with them alone, and I didn't like that. I was already having a bad feeling, and I was having a worse feeling right then.
Was there anything that you had to do the next day where you had to go to bed early, or anything that Lyle was supposed to do that?
No, it was a summer day. There was no school. There was no tennis in the morning.
So there was no particular reason why you'd have to go to sleep early to get up early?
Yeah, that's why it was so strange. I mean, I thought they would just say, okay, I guess. But when she said, no, you can't go out, and then she wouldn't answer Lyle as to why, I was really starting to feel it.
What did Lyle say to her when she said, no, you can't go out? What did he say?
He was saying, why? Why can't we go out?
And how did he sound to you?
He sounded,
You don't remember?
I don't remember.
Okay, and then your mother started to answer him?
She didn't. She started. She's saying because, and she ended up saying because I said so, because I say so, and that's when my dad came out.
Did Lyle ask her again before your dad came out, or did your dad come right out?
I think my dad came right out.
Where did he come from?
He came from the den.
Could you see he came out?
Yeah, I saw him come out, and he said, "Shut up, Kitty."
Objection are vague as to whether it's
It says den here. It's really the study. Well, we called it the study. And it says family room here. And it was a family room, but we just called it the den.
No. If I might have a moment, Your Honor, I want to get another color pen to write these words. I made a picture.
Yes.
Mr. Menendez, what we'll do is we'll put underneath these labels what your family called these rooms. This one here,
That was
paneled room.
the study.
The record should reflect I've written the word study under the word den. This one here, labeled family room.
It was called the den.
And the record should reflect I've written the word den under that. This is all being done on Exhibit 6. And this,
For the record, there are two with 6.
we'll correct the other one later on. Here we have the word entry, and your family called this area the house.
The foyer.
And the record should reflect I've written that word under entry.
for the record. Then,
I really wish you'd use like a big Sharpie or something so we could see that better.
Family room as related originally on that chart now says den in red letters. Is that correct?
For the record, that's what I understood as testimony.
Okay, let's not have this conversation. Let's ask a question of the witness and we'll get an answer.
So, using both words now that are on the chart, which room did your father come out?
The family room / den.
And when your father came out of that room, would you tell us and show us what he did?
He said, "Shut up, Kitty."
Now, I saw you made a gesture with your right hand.
Yeah, he used his hands a lot.
In that particular gesture, had you seen that before?
Yes, he did that when he wanted you to shut up, or he wanted you to stop moving, or he wanted you to be still. He just went,
That's a sharp, cutting type motion.
yeah,
And did you see him use that to shut your mother up over the course of the years?
yes.
And when he said, "Shut up, Kitty," what'd your mother do?
She shut up.
And what did your father do?
He told Lyle that he wasn't going out.
And did he say anything else?
Yeah, he told me to get up to my room. He said he'd be there in a minute. He pointed to my room.
Oh boy.
He pointed,
He said, "Get up to your room and I'll be there in a minute." I'm not quite
And-
sure in that phrase like that, but that's basically what he said.
do you remember when your father said, "You're not going out"? Do you remember if your brother said anything to him about leaving?
No.
You don't recall?
No, because right after he said, the first thing he did was tell my mom to shut up, and then he told Lyle that he wasn't going out tonight. And then right after that, he told me to get up to my room, and so Lyle just, I guess, responded to that.
Well, how did Lyle respond after your father gestured and said that you were to get up to your room?
He said, "No, you're not going to touch Erik." I think he looked at me and told me to get back down the stairs, but I just specifically remember him saying to Dad, "You're not going to touch my little brother. You're not going to touch Erik. You're never going to touch him again." That kind of a thing.
Okay. Did Lyle say anything to you to the effect of "get back down, we're leaving anyway," or anything like that?
No, he didn't say "get back down, we're leaving." He may have said "no, Erik," but I just remember him saying that, and because I remember thinking to myself, "Lyle, what are you doing? Are you crazy? You don't get into an argument right now, right here." And I was just sort of going up the stairs real slowly.
Did you, in fact, start going up the stairs?
Yeah, I was right in front of the stairs, right in the archway, and I started just to walk up the stairs real slowly, I was hesitant about going up.
When your brother said to your father, "You're not going to touch Erik, you're not going to touch my little brother again," did your father respond?
Yes.
And can you tell us first, what kind of tone of voice did your father respond in?
He just jumped at Lyle. He came right over him, and he said, "I do what I want in my family. It's not your little brother. It's my son." And he just was real yelling at him, real jumping at him.
When you say he came right over him, did he move towards him?
Yeah, he walked right toward him, as if, ready for a fight. And I could not believe what was happening.
How did Lyle respond when your father came towards him?
He just moved back and he said, "No, you're not going to touch Erik." And I said, "Oh, Jesus."
Okay, wait a minute. Lyle backed up when
India doesn't like that either. She's not a fan of that.
your father came towards him?
Yeah, whenever Dad came toward Lyle always got timid and went away.
Got timid?
Yeah, you could tell by his face.
When your father made this statement to Lyle, what did Lyle say, if anything, in return?
Lyle just said, "No, you're not going to touch him." But his voice was a lot weaker.
Did Lyle say anything about still wanting you to go out with him or wanting to leave?
He may have said, "We're leaving." And my dad just, when he started, he doesn't really stop. It's like a rush of wind. It's like a hurricane. And he just said, "No, he's my son. I say what I want in this family. He's not your little brother. You're not going out tonight." And Lyle was saying, "No, you're not going to touch him." And he said, "Don't tell me what to do." And he was coming closer.
It's interesting because this seems related. I know folks are saying it in the chat too. It seems related to, how previously Lyle, when he was testifying, he was referring to Erik's relationship with their father as, like, he was saying his father, like Erik and his father, as it's the same father. It's also Lyle's father, right? So most people would say my dad or our dad or something like that. But Lyle was saying his father, which everyone was saying that's such a strange thing to say. And this little exchange, it kind of gives another window into that psychology of how that was maybe reinforced over time, with Jose saying, you're not each other's brothers. You're not, like, you're my son and you're my son and I am your father and I am your father, in a way to sort of keep them separate so that they don't, ally themselves with one another and work together, for example. It seems like it's I wouldn't be surprised if it was a relatively common abuse tactic, where there are multiple people that are being abused. Interesting.
And he just ended it by telling me to go back up to my room because I was sort of lingering on the stairs.
So this was up and back between Lyle and your father?
Not really up and back. It was Dad saying what he was saying and Lyle sort of squeaking in, "No, you're not going to touch him. No, you're not going to touch him."
Okay, well, Lyle was answering. He was trying to say something.
Yes.
But was the tone of voice different as between the two of them?
Yes.
And then your father, did he say something to you again?
Yeah, he's. I guess he saw me lingering on the stairs and he said, "Get up to your room." And
Now, Mr. Menendez, how did you interpret? What did you think your father had in mind when he first said, "Get up to your room, I'll be there in a minute"?
I had two things in my mind.
When he first said it, this is before the argument with your brother.
Well, I knew what he was saying.
What, in your opinion, was he saying?
That he was going to come up to my room and have sex with me. It's what he always did when he said that.
It's what he always did when
It's what he always did when he said it.
When he said what?
That he'll be there.
That he'll be where?
When he told me to get up to my room and said that he was coming up, that's what he meant.
And would he mean that for various kinds of sex or just one kind or what?
For various kinds, but it really depended on how angry he was. Sometimes he said, "Go up to your room and I'll be there in a few minutes." Sometimes he said, "Go to your room and I'll be there in a minute." And you could tell by the tone of his voice or how angry he was what type he was going to have.
What type do you think he was threatening you with when he first said get up to your room on Sunday night?
Sex.
And over the past 3 years or so of your life, was what you call sex something that was done in anger or something that was done more neutrally by your father?
It was done in anger.
Did it start out that way?
No.
Years before?
So, we already have the trigger warning up on the screen, but I mean, obviously this is real tough stuff to get through. So, take care of yourselves. Trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. Making sure that I am saying it here because I have a feeling we're about to get into some details here.
Years before.
Now, after your father approaches Lyle and again tells you to get up to your room, that he'll be there, what is your state of mind at that point as to what you think your father has in mind?
But it didn't just change suddenly. It was one and the other. I thought they were going to kill us, but I thought Dad was going to have sex, and there wasn't any doubt about it in my mind.
He was going
At that point, I was more afraid of him coming up to my room and having sex than anything else at that point.
Did something happen that changed that?
Yeah.
And what happened?
Well, I realized from looking at Mom, it was real clear what was going on.
Well, where was Mom during this exchange where your father was approaching Lyle?
When Dad came forward, Mom came up along next to him. She was along the wall, I guess, near the wall of the on the other side of the bathroom, and she walked forward.
But during this exchange, where was she?
Next to Dad.
And how did she look? What was
Well, not right next to him, but a little bit behind him, right next to him.
close to him?
Yeah.
Okay. And during this exchange between Lyle and your father, what, if anything, did your mother say or do?
She didn't say anything.
And how did the exchange between Lyle and your father end?
It just ended with Dad saying again, "You're not leaving this house."
And what did Dad do?
He went back into the den.
And did your mother remain in the foyer after your father had gone back in the den?
Yes.
And were there any words between your mother and your brother?
Yes, I didn't hear them all. There were just a few words. I was up at the balcony at this point.
You were up on the balcony?
Yeah.
How did you get there?
I went up the stairs. Once Dad told me to get up my stairs again, I could not go up.
So you went up and you were at the top of the stairs?
Yeah.
And were there words between your mother and brother?
Yeah, Mom said something like, "You ruined this family," or something like that. And Lyle said something to Mom, and I really don't remember.
Do you remember what
then
the
Dad came.
Do you remember what the subject matter was of what Lyle said to your mother? Did it have anything to do with
He
you?
said something like, "Are you going to let this happen?" or "Do you want this?" or, I thought he was talking about either them killing us or him coming up to my room. I didn't know. I didn't hear it too well enough to know exactly what he was saying.
Could you see your
Yes.
mother down below from the balcony?
Yes.
Did you look at her face?
I looked at her face on the stairs on the way up. I couldn't really see her face from the balcony.
And was there anything about her face on the stairs on the way up that told you anything?
Oh, it was clear. It was clear that something was going to happen.
Why? What did you see?
Just from my mom's face, if you know her different looks, and she has many different looks.
What was this look, Mr. Menendez?
It was just a stone, resolved look.
She didn't look nervous.
No,
She didn't look frightened.
no,
She didn't look angry.
no.
She
Well,
didn't?
she looked a little angry.
Did she look out of control?
No.
Objection.
Overruled.
You've heard people describe your mother when she was irrational and out of control, have you not?
Mm-hmm.
And they describe this grimace and the fists and that whole thing.
Yeah, she used to clench her fists and her whole face would turn red.
You've seen it. And you saw it over the course of your life?
Oh, yeah.
She's not in that condition at that time, is she?
No.
Objection, leave.
Objection sustained. The answer is stricken.
Was she in that condition at that time or in some other facial mode?
No, she was in a strong sort of just hard look and not out of control, not flipping out, not not any of that. Just a resolved look, and
how
it
did
scared me.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. How did seeing that look affect you?
It scared me
Why did it scare you?
because my mom was not often in control. She was not often completely aware of everything in her surroundings. She was often paranoid, or I'm not good with words. She would something would just set her off real easy, and a conversation like this, where Dad was yelling at Lyle or Dad was yelling at me, she would take his side immediately and get angry.
Take whose side immediately?
She would take Dad's side immediately and get angry with us, and either reiterate what Dad was saying or continue to say what Dad was saying, or just sit there, but really with this angry look on her face and the scowl. That wasn't the case here.
So after this exchange between your mother and your brother, what happens next?
Dad comes out.
Comes out of where?
Of the den and grabs Mom.
The family room / den?
Yes.
And he grabs your mother?
Mm-hmm.
And what, if anything, does your father say?
That what if anything keeps coming up.
Come on,
remember?
or don't waste your time. I don't remember.
I know I've said this before. It doesn't sound the same when Leslie uses it because she's not. It's not like a, it's like I'm reminded of the saying, when all you have is a hammer, all the world is a nail. That's kind of how I feel like Elaine used what if anything. And so it doesn't sound the same here because it's not used in the same way. But every time I hear that phrase now, it has been ruined for me. I don't know if you guys are catching the same thing, but I had to point it out. I'm sorry, guys.
Remember.
Okay. Try not to say things you don't remember, okay?
Okay.
All right. What happens next after your father says something to your mother?
They go back into the den and close the door.
Now, could you see them close the door? Did you hear them close the door?
I saw the doors close.
And how could you see that from the balcony?
As you can see it from the balcony.
Does the balcony look down on both sides?
Yes. Well, there's the stairs goes up, over, and then there's the hallway and the balcony. So it's sort of like in a circular, so you can see down. The stairs aren't circular, but it ends up going in sort of the outer edges of a square, let's say, and you can see in the middle of the square.
Okay, so there's like an open rectangle.
Yes.
And what you're calling a balcony is sort of like a gallery, is it not? It's a straight corridor.
Yeah.
That's above the staircase, but then there's an opening and you can see down.
Right.
And were you watching your parents when they were out there in front of the family room den during this argument?
Yes.
Were you, how carefully were you watching them?
I was really watching them. I was really scared, and I was really wanting to know what was happening. I mean, I was looking for any sign to see what I thought was happening was not happening. And
Okay.
I just saw him go back into the den.
And you saw the doors closed?
Yes.
Now, at that point, Mr. Menendez, what did you think was happening?
I thought my dad was going to come up to my room and have sex, and I thought they were going to kill us.
You thought both things were going to happen.
Yes.
And at that point, did your brother come up the stairs?
Yes.
And did you say anything to your brother?
Yes.
Okay, now, what do you remember saying to him?
I remember.
Best you can recall.
I can't let him come into my room. I can't. It's not coming into my room. I can't let this happen.
And what did your brother say to you?
He said, "Don't worry about that." Well, he didn't say, "Don't worry about that." He said, I guess he said, "Don't worry about that. It's happening now. What are you talking about?" Something like that.
Okay, and what did you think already, before your brother said anything to you, what did you think was going to be the result of that night?
That I was going to die.
And what about your brother? Well, how was he going to do that night?
Oh, you could tell. I mean, he didn't.
What did you think was going to be the condition of your brother?
Oh, I thought he was going to die too.
And die at whose hands?
My parents.
And when your brother said it's happening now, is that what you already thought?
Yeah, that's what I already thought. I mean, it really scared me how he looked at the top of the stairs, but I just said, I got to get to the car.
Now, when you said it really scared you how he looked, who do you mean?
My brother.
How did he look that really scared you?
He looked really panicked. I mean, over my life, especially that weekend, I really looked at my brother to see how he was looking, to sort of judge things, because I knew that sometimes I wasn't thinking right. And like on Thursday night or on Saturday night, I could tell from his expressions, and then on Sunday night for sure.
Did you consider yourself to be different emotionally than your brother?
Yes,
Did you which of you did you think scared easier?
I did.
And over the course of your life, was that true?
Yes.
So in looking to your brother, what were you trying to see over the course of those days?
I was
In
trying
him.
to see, other than what he didn't always tell me everything. He a lot of times he protected me and didn't tell me everything, or told me gently what he felt like when I found Mom's suicide letter, her first one.
Just tell me what he looked like, though. You said you were looking to him to see how he was feeling. Is that right?
Yes.
And what did you see or hear
On Sunday night?
over the course from Thursday to Sunday? What is your opinion of how your brother was feeling?
Oh, he was feeling scared. I mean, I could tell
How
from-
did, I'm sorry.
at different times he was feeling different things. On Thursday night, as soon as I told him what happened with my dad, I remember his face just went white.
With my dad.
Whiter than mine. I mean, it went white.
There it is.
And
As soon as I told him what happened with my dad, I mean, that language is a little bit more normal, because he's saying to Leslie. So, you know, the relationship is, this is my dad, not your dad, Leslie. But it still is like, it's there's this division of like my dad, his dad. Very strange.
And I remember on Saturday night after Mom's conversation, he just looked scared, but
And-
not like he was on Sunday.
And on Sunday, how was he as compared to those other times?
He was much worse.
And how did it affect you, if at all, to see your brother, who was less emotional than you, being scared?
It scared the hell out of me. I mean, it almost made me lose it right there, out of control.
Had that ever happened to you previously in your life, Mr. Menendez? Had you ever lost it emotionally?
Why don't you rephrase the question?
Okay, you said just then you thought you would lose it and be out of control.
Yeah, I felt my stomach twist, my bowels beginning to lose it.
Previously in your life, were there times when you lost control
Yes,
physically of your body?
yes.
And were those moments when you were feeling what?
I was feeling too stressed out, too scared, too nervous.
Now, on this occasion, with your brother appearing frightened on the stairs, could you compare that to any other occasion in your life?
Yes.
Okay. Was it the same as other occasions, different than other occasions, the worst, the best, what?
It was worse than other occasions, but on the other occasions, I let myself go. I would just sort of shake on the floor. And on this occasion, I knew something was happening. I couldn't do that.
So you couldn't lose control.
I was losing control, but I wouldn't let myself. I was fighting myself. It's hard to
Had you-
describe.
Was there anything in your past that you were aware of, consciously aware of, that was as frightening as what was happening that Sunday on the stairs?
Maybe when Dad put the knife to my throat, but that's would be the only time.
Now, at that point, after your brother talked to you and said, "What's happening now?" you said your thought was, "I had to get to the car."
Yes,
Well, what was in the car?
all the shells
Where was the gun?
in my bedroom.
But you didn't think, "I have to get to my bedroom"?
Well, I knew I had to get to my bedroom, but I knew from the night before, I for some stupid reason, I didn't load my gun, and I only had still 2 shells, and so I needed to get to my car.
Okay. Where did you go first, the car or your bedroom?
My bedroom.
And what did you do in your bedroom?
I got my gun.
And where did you go from there?
Out to the car.
Now, Mr. Menendez, did it occur to you to simply close the door to your bedroom and sit on the foot of your bed on Sunday night with the 2 shells in your gun and wait for your father and mother to come?
It flashed through my mind.
And why didn't you do
It
that?
flashed through my mind to barricade myself in my room, but I knew I wouldn't be able to do that
Why not?
because I panicked whenever something like that was happening.
Well, how many times before had something like this happened to you?
A lot. Not like this, but them coming into my room a lot. I mean, before almost all the times with the sex, I would say to myself, I'm not going to let this happen. I'm going to stop. And as soon as he comes into my room, I'm going to fight him. I'm going to jump on him. I imagine myself on a ledge, jumping down on him, all kinds of things to stop the sex. And whenever he came into the room, I just crumbled and I couldn't do it. Similar like Saturday night.
And so did you think on Sunday night that if your father was coming into your room or your mother was coming into your room, did you think you were going to fight back, or you could have at that point?
No, I know I couldn't. Not when he was right in front of me.
You recall testifying here that when your father would get angry with your brother would get timid?
Yes.
Do you recall hearing the testimony of various coaches that when your father would be on the attack verbally with your brother would go frozen?
Yes.
When your father would be on the attack with you over the course of your life, would you have a similar reaction?
Oh yes. I froze. I went dead. I usually started to lose control of my body, but when Dad was doing that to me, Lyle usually tried to come over and protect me and help me.
But my point is, did you fight back over the years with your father?
No.
Did you verbally resist?
No.
Apart from Thursday night, did you physically resist?
No.
Did you think you could?
No.
Why?
Because this was my dad. This was a big guy, and I don't know what it was. I mean, it was just my dad, and it was just something about it. I couldn't. I mean, I remember in the sex that when he would come into the room, I would want to say, no, I don't want to do this. And I would want to say, I don't want you to touch me. And I would want to say these things, but I would just see him. He was like huge, and he did what he wanted to me, and I couldn't stop that. And I wanted to, but I couldn't. I don't know why.
Well, on this occasion, on these 2 occasions, Saturday night and Sunday night, did you ever envision yourself actually physically fighting back against your father?
No.
What do you think would have happened if your father had approached you with a weapon on Sunday night?
Are you asking his state of mind?
Yes, at the time. Yes.
Why don't you rephrase the question?
Thank you. And let me withdraw it for the moment. Let's do this. You did run out to your car,
Yes.
and you did load your gun.
Yes.
What did you do with the 2 rounds of birdshot that you had put in the gun on Friday?
I unloaded them
And why did you do that?
because of what the man said on Saturday.
The man said that they weren't good for protection.
Yes.
And did you then load the gun with the new ammunition?
Well, actually, what the man said was that they weren't good for protection because there were these teeny little things that.
Question was, did you then load your gun with the new ammunition?
Yes.
And do you remember how many you put in?
I don't remember. It was dark, and I just was reaching in, grabbing them and loading them. I think it was 5. I think I loaded it all the way that I knew how.
All the way without having to slide the pump down?
Yeah, I slide the pump down and then put in another shell like he described up
Like
here.
Deputy Van Horn described.
Yeah, no,
Did
I
you do
didn't.
that?
No, I didn't do that.
So you put in as many as you could without having to do that?
Yes.
And are you sure you put in all new stuff?
It was dark. I tried to do that. I'm sure. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I tried to do that.
Now, at that point, then you had a loaded gun, correct?
Yes.
So why didn't you just wait and see what your father and mother were going to do?
Because I was thinking they were coming out. I only thought I had seconds. I thought they were, as soon as they came out of the room, that I was going to die. I had to get to that room before they came out.
And going back for a moment to the previous question I was asking you concerning your state of mind, what did you think you would have done if, as you were going into the house, the den doors open and your parents are standing there with firearms? What do you think you would have done?
I just would have froze.
Excuse me?
I would have froze.
Were you afraid of that?
Yes, I was very afraid of that. I was terrified of them actually getting out of the room.
And confronting you with a weapon?
Objection needed.
Sustained.
Yeah, she's supplying an answer for
Question
him.
was, what did you think you would have been able to do if they had confronted you with a weapon?
Nothing.
Now, do you recall as you were going into the den, Mr. Menendez, do you recall thinking something about what your parents were about to do?
Yes.
And what was the thought that flashed through your head?
That they were going to take my gun.
Take the gun that you were going in?
It was this stupidly big thing, and it was just like I thought they were just going to grab it
At what point?
as soon as I walked in the door.
Did you think they were armed at that point? Did you think they were not armed, or did you not think about that either way?
I had thought they were armed, but as I was running toward the foyer, I just remember thinking, they're going to get it. They're going to get this. They're going to get this.
They're going to get the gun?
Yeah.
Now, after you entered the den, what do you remember happening?
I just remember firing.
And did you aim in any particular place?
It was just in front of me.
And where were you standing?
I was standing, I guess, in front of the coffee table.
I can't hear you.
I was standing in front of the coffee table.
In front of the coffee table. How did the coffee table line up with the television set in that room?
It's right in front of the television set. Not right in front, but in front of it.
And were you between the television set and the coffee table, or were you between the coffee table and the couch?
No, I was between the television set and the coffee table.
And how close to the coffee table were you? Do you recall?
I don't recall. I wasn't close.
Were you closer to the television set?
Yes.
Now, when you went into the room, how soon did you start firing?
Immediately.
And when you came to this position between the television set and the coffee table, did you keep moving while you were firing, or at some point did you stand still?
I don't remember. I guess I kept moving. I had just run into the room. I guess I kept moving. I don't remember. All I remember is firing.
When you say you were between the coffee table and the television set, at what point was that?
That was after I finished firing.
That's where you wound up?
Yeah.
You said you were firing directly in front of you.
Yes.
If you're moving from the doors to the area with the TV and the coffee table, are you firing at the bookcases, which are directly in front of you?
No.
Or am I not understanding what you're saying?
I was just firing as I went into the room. I just started firing.
In what direction?
In front of me.
What was in front of you?
My parents.
So you were firing at your parents?
Yeah.
And was Lyle to your right or to your left?
He was to my right. To my right.
And could you tell when you first went through the doors?
There is a little bit of like some other like audio feed that's on this. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but it's try not to be distracted by it, I guess. Yeah, it's I can hear it. I'm sure you guys can too. I don't know what it is or why it's there, but we'll try to ignore it. It's just part of the recording.
Where your parents were.
They were in front of us.
Where were they in relation to the furniture in the room?
Behind the coffee table. My dad wasn't, but my mom was.
When you say your dad wasn't behind the coffee table, where was he?
The coffee table ended before the couch, I believe, and he was in that area, in front of the couch, a little bit to its left, I think. I don't remember. I mean, I just saw this figure, which I think I knew was my dad, and he was right there.
And did you see another figure besides the figure of your dad?
Yes.
And what was that figure's position when you first came into the room?
To my dad's right.
To your dad's right.
Yes.
And did you get in front of that figure? Did you get to a place where you were in front of that figure?
Yes.
Okay, and now, am I in front of you right now?
Yes.
All right, we're not directly lined up.
No.
Right? But I am, you're in front of me, I'm in front of you, correct?
Yes.
And do you know if you lined up directly with that second figure or if you were off to the side?
I don't know. I don't know. I just walked into the room. I just started firing, and I don't know. I didn't think about these things. I didn't think, where was this? Where was that? I just started firing, and I don't know.
Okay. Did you fire?
This is hard. This is hard, and I anticipate that the prosecution on cross-examination is gonna really hammer him on this, because he's obviously very frustrated and very uncomfortable with this particular subject of like where things were in this particular moment. And this is direct examination. This is the friendliest that it's going to be for him. Cross-examination is going to be way more pressurized. So he's probably going to get very frustrated and very I don't know, perturbed maybe. So, but I will say there probably was a lot of adrenaline. The brain doesn't necessarily remember all the details when there's adrenaline pumping in a particular moment. For someone to have like a Sherlock Holmes-esque, like Robert Downey Jr. style Sherlock Holmes-esque, like memory of the detail of like, this little tiny fly was flying around over here and that little thing was happening over there. So that's not what happens usually for most people, especially when they're in a very intense moment. Body's just trying to react as quickly as possible, and you've got a lot of things in your body that are kind of screaming at you. I'm not trying to testify for him. This is just me and my thoughts, generally speaking, in these kinds of moments. But you can tell he's very, 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 very frustrated.
Did you fire at the second figure? Did you fire at the first figure? Do you know if you fired at both?
I don't know.
Did you ever get any closer to either of the figures than the area between the television and the coffee table?
What?
You don't understand my question?
No.
Let's start again. How far away from the coffee table were you when you remember firing right in front of you?
I was as close as I was. I didn't think about it.
Well, were you?
I know I ended up 2 or 3 feet away.
2 or 3 feet away from what?
The coffee table.
2 or 3 feet away from the end of the coffee table or from the side of the coffee table?
From the middle of the coffee table. The coffee table had 2 ends. I was 2 or 3 feet away from the center.
So you were 2 feet away from the edge of the coffee table?
The edge of the center.
So say this is the coffee table.
Yes.
You're 2 feet back from it.
Yes.
You don't want to come right out and blurt it. Actually.
And that's where you were, you say you ended up?
Yes.
And were you farther away before that point?
Excuse me?
You say you ended up there.
Yes.
Where were you coming from? What
The
direction?
door.
So you went from the door to there,
Yes.
just across the room. You didn't go forward and back, like towards and away from the coffee table?
No.
You said you were closer to the TV than the coffee table. Is that right?
Yes, I think so. It's not a whole lot of room.
Well, Mr. Menendez, the television set is more than 4 feet away from the coffee table, isn't it?
Probably 4 feet, and I was standing in the middle, 2 feet away from each. You're asking me to remember these things that I don't.
The coffee table's about 12 feet away from the coffee table. The TV is about 12 feet away from the coffee table, wasn't it?
12 feet away?
It's completely across on the far wall of the room, isn't it?
So there's two at the top.
Yes, but the coffee table's in the center of the room.
It is.
The coffee table was not 12 feet away from the TV. It was maybe 4 to 6 feet.
And so you were equidistant between the TV and the coffee table. Is that what
Yes,
you think? More
that's
or
what-
less?
More or less.
However far it might have been.
Yes.
And when you ended up, wherever you ended up, was the firing over?
Yes.
And what
Yes.
had stopped the firing? Why did it end?
I just fired as much as I could.
And how much was as much as you could? Did you empty the gun or
Every shell I had.
and after you had done that, did something happen?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I sure don't. I'm clean up.
When after you had stopped firing, was the condition of the room
It might be
different
HBO.
than when you started?
Yes.
What was different about the condition of the room, not the
You know what
people?
it is? Oh, man.
I didn't really see the condition of the people. I just saw there was a lot of smoke. It was dark.
Well,
There was light coming in from the hallway, from the TV, and it was real eerie. The TV was illuminating lights, and it was horrible.
Was it darker before the shooting or after in the room?
Yeah, I was just on the phone.
Before.
Yeah,
It was darker before you shot?
during break.
Yes.
I don't understand. You said there was smoke in the room after.
Well,
Sustained, rephrase the question.
Did the smoke?
Well, I mean, that's kind of, so I know that argumentative is an objection that comes up a lot in this particular courtroom for things that are like, we have a much higher tolerance for pressurized comments and questions and things of witnesses on the witness stand based on other trials that we've watched together, right? So it's like, the standard for argumentative in this courtroom is a little overly sensitive, in my opinion. But it's extra funny that the argumentative objection comes from prosecution when the defense attorney is doing the direct examination of her own witness. Like, it's her own witness. Why do you care if she's being argumentative with her own witness? It's kind of wild. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. I just thought that was kind of silly.
Make the room darker, Mr. Menendez.
the smoke made it harder to see,
That's what I'm asking you.
but it wasn't.
All right, rephrase the question.
Was it harder to see in the room after the shooting or before?
After.
When you went in the room, were the room lights on?
No.
Was the television on?
Yes.
After the shooting, was the television still on?
Yes.
Were the room lights still off?
Yes.
Was there now smoke in the room?
Yes.
So what she's getting at here is she's really trying to nail down the details to the extent that she can, as to what happened. I mean, obviously he's very frustrated with being able to say where he was, what he saw, et cetera, et cetera. Visibility is an issue, because, as you're shooting shotguns, they produce smoke. And so that is, the more you're shooting in a confined space, particularly like a living room like this, that's not ventilated or anything, the more it's going to accumulate, right? So the visibility in terms of, lights being on in the room, the TV being on, lights not being on, I should say. All of these kinds of things are going to have an impact on how they're able to perceive really anything going on in the room as they are running in there with high adrenaline, et cetera, et cetera. And this is going to come up again on cross-examination. And so this is why Leslie's really trying to nail down the details to get this on direct examination, because she knows that on cross it's going to be similar to what happened with Lyle on cross examination. Pam was really getting into the blueberries and ice cream thing. And a number of other things, where they were positioned, the positioning of various wounds on Jose in particular. So yeah. So anyway, so that's why Leslie is really trying to nail these down. And Debbie Faison Cook, thank you so much for gifting 1 Legal Bites membership. Marie Garound, you have been gifted a membership by Debbie. So welcome back. I believe you've been in Bite Club before. And I hope to see you on Friday at our casual members only live stream. All right, let's get back to the testimony.
When the shooting ended, could you see either your father or your mother?
Yes,
Who could you see?
my father.
And where was he at that time?
He was on the couch.
Could you see your mother?
No.
Now, what was it that happened after the shooting ended?
I heard a noise from my mom.
And what was your reaction to that noise?
I just ran out of the room.
What did the noise, physically you ran out of the room, how did the noise make you feel?
It scared me. I just wanted to get out of there.
And where did you go?
Out through the foyer, to the front door. Lyle was right there.
Where did you go?
To the car.
And when you got to the car, what did you do?
I started scrambling. Lyle and I were scrambling for any shell he could find, and I just handed him one.
You found a shell?
Yes.
Do you know which kind it was? New
No.
one or old one?
I didn't look.
And you gave it to Lyle?
Yes.
And then what happened?
Lyle ran back in the house, and I sort of followed. I didn't want to go back in.
Well, did you go back in the house?
Yes.
And did you go back to the den?
No, I didn't go in the den.
Did you go back to the den?
Yes.
And did Lyle go back to the den?
Lyle was already in the den by that point.
And could you hear anything after you got back to the den?
I just heard a fire of a gun.
You heard what?
I heard Lyle fire the gun.
You heard a gun go off.
Yes.
Did you see Lyle firing the gun?
No.
Where were you exactly when you heard the firing of the gun?
I was coming toward the den.
Yes, where were you exactly?
In the hallway.
And where was your brother when you next saw him?
Coming out of the den.
And at that point, when he came out of the den, what did you do?
I just sat on the stairs.
You sat on the stairs?
Yes.
And what did he do?
He sat on the ground across from me.
Now, you heard your brother testify that the two of you were sitting in the foyer area for some period of time before there was any further conversation.
Yes.
Did that happen?
Yes. Not as long as he said, but...
Your recollection is it wasn't quite as long as he said?
No, I think he said something like 10 minutes or something like that.
Did you think it was that long?
No.
How long do you think it was?
Just a few minutes.
Excuse me?
Just a few minutes. Like 3-4 minutes. I don't know. I mean, it seemed like a long time, but I wasn't really thinking about time.
Your Honor, this would be a good time, speaking of time, to take a break.
All right, we'll take a recess. Please return at 15 minutes after the hour, and don't discuss this case with anyone, and don't form any final opinions about it. Resume at 11:15.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Menendez, calling your attention back to Sunday night, you and your brother are seated in the foyer, you said?
Yes.
And after a few minutes, Do you and your brother have a conversation?
Yes.
And was anything mentioned in that conversation about the fact that the police hadn't come?
Yes.
And after that conversation, did you go back into the family room den and do something?
Yes.
What did you do in that room?
Lyle got his gun, and then we picked up the shells.
And where was your gun?
My gun was on the stairs in the foyer.
Now, do you remember generally where the shell casings were that you picked up?
Yes.
And where were they?
They were right around the door area.
Well,
What?
before you look at the diagram, they were right around the door area, the entryway into the room?
Yeah, they were right inside that area.
Were there anywhere near the table that's shown on that diagram as being to the side of the couch?
Yes. The one that just says table, the
Can you
eight-sided
show
one.
with the pointer the general area where the casings were?
Right around here.
That area?
Yeah.
Were there any, did you go anywhere near your mother and father when you went back in the room?
No.
Did you go at any time behind the couch when you went back in the room?
No.
So the area that you've just shown us, is that the only part of the room that you went into when you went to pick up the casings?
Yes.
And were the casings under anything, or were they just on the floor?
They may have been under the table. Most of them are just on the floor.
So some may have been under that, is that an octagonal table that's to the side of the couch?
Yeah, if that's an eight-sided table.
Okay. And that's what you meant by the table?
Yes.
Now, after doing that, did you and your brother leave the house?
Yes.
Now, you heard your brother testify to what you did after you left the house.
Yes.
Did you go to the AMC 14 movie theaters in Century City?
Ye-
Sustained.
Did you do what your brother said you did concerning a theater?
Yeah, we went over to the theater.
And at some point, did you receive some tickets?
Lyle did, and he gave them to me.
And did you notice a time on those tickets?
Yes.
And as a consequence, did you not show those tickets to the police later?
Exactly. No.
And did you then, after the theater, go somewhere to do something with the guns?
Yes.
And where did you go?
Up to Mulholland.
And did you do with the guns what your brother said you did?
Yes.
You dumped them down the side of the hill?
Objection, leading.
Sustained.
And after doing something with the guns, did you go to Santa Monica?
Yes.
And do you recall the route you took to get from Mulholland Drive to Santa Monica?
Yes.
And would you tell us what the route was?
Up to Mulholland, we just took cold water since I'm the one that knew where Mulholland was. And we just took the fastest way, Sunset to the 405.
Mulholland doesn't intersect Sunset. How'd you get to Sunset?
We went back down Coldwater.
And from the 405, that's the San Diego freeway?
Yes.
And where did you go from the 405?
To the 10.
That's the Santa Monica freeway?
Yes.
And that took you into Santa Monica?
Yes.
And do you recall being at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium?
Yes.
And did you see anything like exhibits or tents in the parking lot area there?
Yes, there was a fence area, and then I guess the tents or exhibits were inside the fence area.
And at any time, did you get out of the car and go into that fenced area?
At one point, yes.
And did you encounter your brother at that point?
Yes, he was coming out.
Now, at some point that evening after leaving the house, did you throw away some clothing?
Yes.
What kind of clothing did you throw away?
My pants, and that's all the clothing I threw away.
Let me ask you the question again. What kind of clothing did you throw away?
Did you just answer that question?
Yes.
Okay, next question.
Did you throw away anything in addition to your pants?
No.
Do you know if your brother threw away any clothing?
He did.
Do you know what he threw away?
I believe it was only his shoes.
And how were were other items thrown away at the same time that the pants and the shoes were thrown away?
Yes, we were just scrambling to get whatever was in the back of the car, whatever we can find that was obvious.
Did you look in the back of the car as well as your brother?
It was a hatchback. The hatchback was open.
I'm sorry, did I ask you if the hatchback was open?
I looked
Ask
in.
your next question.
Did you look in the car yourself, Mr. Menendez?
Yes.
Did you reach and obtain items in the back of the car yourself?
Yes.
Did you put them in something before you put them in the dumpster?
I know there was a tennis bag there, and we put some of the things in the tennis bag, some of the things we just threw in the dumpster.
And what did you do with the tennis bag after you put things in it?
We threw it in the dumpster.
Were there a number of tennis bags in the back of your?
She definitely has certain details that she wants the jury to hear. It's not enough to be like, oh, this stuff was in the car and then it got tossed out. Like she wants to hear, well, we some of the items we put into a tennis bag. Then we took the tennis bag over to the dumpster and we threw the whole thing into a dumpster. Like she wants all of those details, but he's not thinking in that kind of a detail oriented sort of way. And so she's trying to pull this out of him while not drawing a leading objection from the other side. And sometimes she's successful with that and sometimes she's not. But you can hear her frustration as she's trying to draw this out of him. And he's also getting a little bit frustrated too. So, it's interesting to see that that frustration from the both of them, but it with that frustration, it feels like there's some familiarity between the two of them, almost like she's I know that she's said and folks have said in the chat that Leslie has said something along the lines of she wished that she could have adopted the Menendez brothers because she wanted to take care of them and take them in and sort of raise them to be to have better lives or whatnot. But this definitely feels like, in a certain sense, a mothering kind of vibe here. It's similar to, well, not similar, but it's interesting because we said the same thing about Jill Lansing with Lyle. It felt like she had a very warm and mothering kind of tone for him, but that was sort of giving him kindness and warmth and whatnot, which as he was testifying, I sort of realized that seems like the thing that he had always wanted in his life was, that's why he had all those stuffed animals and he would even speak for the stuffed animals to his girlfriends and things like that. He needed that nurturing kind of warmth. Whereas with Erik, he probably also needed that nurturing warmth, but he needed someone to be a fierce protector for him, really more than the warmth from what it seems like so far. Maybe I'll think otherwise as we continue on, but this, so it sort of speaks to the different types of personalities that they were drawn to with their legal counsel. Personality is a big thing for, especially in big cases like this. A client choosing a lawyer, obviously you want someone who is competent, who knows the law, who is very skilled in what they're in what it is that you need them to do. But you also need someone that you can trust and that you can vibe with and that you can gel with, because otherwise, if you don't have that, a lot of problems can turn up in the course of the representation. So here, this right now, even with this frustration, it seems like it's accompanied with a sense of familiarity between the two of them, almost like she's a mom talking to a teenage son, and if you're familiar, or you can think back to yourself maybe as a teenager, and sometimes some of those conversations that will happen between a mother and a teenage child, sometimes they can, you could have some tense conversations like that where there's some frustration as she's trying to draw that out of him. Here's an interesting question. Ben Frail says, did they have any problems accessing their parents' funds to pay for representation? I actually don't know. I don't know how they funded it, but my understanding is they did get a certain amount of money. I don't know if life insurance policy was like the first thing that became available to them, and I don't know if they had to pay that back or if that had to go to other family members. But my understanding is that the aunts and uncles, particularly on the Menendez side of the family, on their father's side, the aunts and uncles were very, very, very supportive. So, if you, in terms of the estate here, the vast amount of money that had to go somewhere, right? They would not have inherited it because of the fact that they were convicted of murdering their parents. There's a commonly referred to a slayer statute in California. And unfortunately, I've encountered this doing trust and estates litigation. It was an interesting case that the firm that I was working for ended up sort of very delicately walking away from once we realized what had happened in that case. But if you are set to inherit from an estate from someone, and then you are convicted of murdering that person, you're disinherited under the law. You're not. It's a very strong policy on that that the law does not want to reward people to kill the people so that they can kill someone so that they can inherit. So anyway, so here the estate, the Menendez estate, had to go somewhere. Where would it have gone? I don't know what the will actually said, but most likely it would have gone to aunts and uncles, like the siblings of Jose and Kitty. That's typically how it goes under probate law. Is first it goes from parent to kid. If there are no kids, then it goes to the other spouse. Spouse to spouse, and then kids, and then if there's no one in the nuclear family left, then it goes to the person who died, their siblings or parents, or what have you. So anyway, but my understanding though is that the people who would have taken the estate from Jose and Kitty after their death, they're people that are very, very supportive of the Menendez brothers. So if they were not able to fund it themselves, I wouldn't be surprised. And folks that are very familiar with this case in the chat can let me know if this is right or wrong. It would not surprise me if the aunts and uncles were like, we'll use these funds to pay for your defense. We'll whatever you guys need, like we got you. We got you covered. But folks can let me know one way or another. I don't think there was any issue, but I don't know for a fact if there was any issue with paying for representation. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, let's get back to it.
Your car?
Yes.
Now, do you recall specifically where in the chain of events, the movie, Mulholland Drive, Santa Monica Civic, where in the chain of events you threw away the clothing in the tennis bag?
No.
Do you know if it was before you got to the Santa Monica Civic or after you were at the Santa Monica Civic?
I'd always thought it was after, but it very well could have been before.
So you're not certain about that?
No.
And do you know what city or area, we'll strike that, was the dumpster at a service station, gasoline station?
Sustained.
What kind of premises was the dumpster at?
It was at a gas station. It had a little, I think it had a little car wash there. It was a big place.
Was it a gas station?
Yes.
And do you know what city or town or area the gas station was in?
Santa Monica.
And do you recall, after being in Santa Monica, returning home?
Yes.
And do you recall the route for getting home?
Yes.
Mr. Menendez, had you spent more time in Los Angeles since 1986, or had your brother spent more time in Los Angeles since 1986?
I had much more.
Which of you, if either, was more familiar with the roads, the freeways, the routes?
I was.
Which of you on Sunday night was driving?
Lyle was.
And which of you, if either, was giving directions?
I was.
Now, what kind of emotional condition were you in by the time you headed home?
I was crying. I know I was shaking. I was not in a good emotional condition.
And what about your brother? Was he in a good emotional condition?
No, he wasn't. He was making a lot of mistakes on the road. I was trying to tell him to get it together.
Okay. Did you feel at that time that you were capable of meeting with Harry Berman or any other friend?
Overall.
No, not at all.
Now, when you got back to the house, what did you do?
I went into the room where my parents were.
Would you back up a little? Why did you do that?
I don't know. I just couldn't stop myself. I was just drawn to the room. I didn't really want to go in, but I could not go in.
And when you did go in, how did it affect you, if at all?
It affected me. I just started crying a lot harder. One point I started to scream. It was awful, and I couldn't handle what I was seeing.
Do you recall hearing the 9/11 tape that was played?
Yes.
Were you?
Weird. Okay. That's also like clearly a very pre 9/11 reference right there. I know we mentioned it before, but for some reason it hit me again in the same way. How she referred to it as a 9/11 tape. I remember people used to refer to 911 as either 911 or 9/11, but now no one refers to a 911. And for those that are outside of the United States, sorry, 911 is the number that you call for emergencies in the United States. So so the fact that she refers to it as a 9/11 call, that's a very pre September 11th, 2001 kind of reference, because today no one would refer to that as a 9/11 call. It's strictly 911, because when you say 9/11, there's a very specific, a thing for us. It's a weird kind of like awareness that happens with that.
You in the room with your brother when he was calling the police?
No.
Were you on the same floor of the house?
No.
Where were you when, to the best of your knowledge, your brother was calling the police?
I believe I was in the den. I mean, I don't know exactly at what point he was on the phone with the police. I assume when he went upstairs. But after he went upstairs, I went back to the den.
You had been in the den. Did he come and get you?
Yes.
Did he get you out of there?
Yeah.
And did he go upstairs?
Yes.
And you went back in?
Objection leading.
Sustained.
Yeah.
After he
Just
went back
leading.
upstairs, after he went upstairs, what did you do?
I went back in the den.
And you don't know why?
No.
Were the lights still on?
Yes.
And when had the lights been put on?
When we were picking up the shells.
When you got back home, what was your state of mind with respect to whether or not your parents were dead?
I mean, logically, I knew they were dead, but I just couldn't accept that. I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that they were dead. It
And
just
when
seemed,
I'm sorry.
it just seemed too much for me.
When you saw them in the den later, didn't they appear to be dead?
Yes.
And did you accept it then that they were dead?
Yeah.
Irrelevant.
Roll.
Yes, I accepted that they were dead and that they were gone. But I still couldn't believe that. It just seemed impossible to me.
What was impossible about it?
The fact that my mom and dad could be killed, it just seemed impossible.
Did you think they were immortal?
Sustained.
Why did you find it hard to believe that they could die?
There you go.
Because they were my parents, and they had always been in my life, and I just never thought they could really die.
Just because you needed them, or
I mean, it kind of, I mean, in a certain sense, this kind of makes sense because, I think every person reaches a certain point in their life when they have to first face the reality of their parents' mortality. It's like you might remember when that moment was for you. For me, I remember it was in college, encountering a health scare of one of my parents. And it was like not even that urgent, but it was enough to be like, oh, this is something that actually can happen. I mean, obviously, that there's a concept that it can happen, but this is something that 100% can and will happen at some point. And it seems like they had never thought about that, although it seems strange in this specific context because of the fact that they actually brought about the death of their parents. So, maybe you believe what he's saying, maybe you don't. If you do believe it, it probably sort of reinforces for you the idea that none of this was planned, that none of this was thought through, that none of this was them mapping out what they were going to do, because it would seem that he would not be having these thoughts after the fact if he had been planning out their death ahead of time, because they probably would have thought about all of that in advance to be like, this is what's going to happen. They are going to no longer exist in this world. So maybe this is why it's very important for Leslie to draw this out from him at this time, is to make you really think about that.
or because they were incapable of dying, or they were too strong to die, or what?
I don't really know. They were so powerful and they were so overwhelming in my life that I never thought that they would go away. I never thought that they would not be in my life. And it was hitting me that they were not in my life. And it just seemed unreal.
Did they seem unreal when you went back into the den? Was there something about the way they appeared that didn't seem natural?
Yeah.
Sustained. The answer is stricken.
Mr. Menendez, you heard played in this courtroom tape of your interviews with Sergeant Edmonds and with Detective Zoller.
Yes.
Do you recall on one or both of those you're describing your parents looking like wax figures, not seeming real?
Yes.
Is that an impression at what time did you form that impression?
Both a little when I was picking up the shells, although I was trying really not to look at them. I was really doing everything I could to stay away from them, but it was after when I was looking at them and I couldn't stop myself.
When you say after, do you mean when you returned to the house?
Yeah, when I returned to the house later that night.
What we're talking about now?
Yes.
Now, after your brother made the call, the police arrived. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you eventually wound up at the station and you gave the statement to Sergeant Edmonds that we heard?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Menendez, over the course of that week, particularly as between Thursday and Sunday night, you have described the fact that you were in fear. Who were you in fear of?
My parents.
Both of them?
Yes.
And were you in fear of them independently or together as a unit, or both?
I'd say both. Definitely also independently.
Had your parents worked together as a unit in the past to frighten you?
Yes.
Was that something that happened more than once in your life?
Yes.
Can you recall the earliest time in your life when your parents worked together to frighten you?
The earliest time I can remember.
Yes, when is that earliest time?
When I was
Where were
I
you
guess
living?
it was the North Mill Roadhouse, right after Muncie, before Pennington.
Okay, and that's the house in, I think it's called West Windsor, New Jersey, outside of Princeton.
Yes.
Was there some feature that house had that was different than some of the other houses you had lived in?
Yes.
What did that house have?
It had a basement. Not just had a basement, but it was a unrugged basement.
Unrugged?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
There wasn't any rug or carpet on the basement floor.
Okay, what was the basement floor made of?
It was cement.
Was this basement, you know what the difference is between a finished basement and an unfinished basement?
Objection irrelevant.
Overall.
Yeah, I guess.
Do you know the difference between a finished basement and an unfinished basement? You know what the difference is? That's the question.
No.
Okay. Did the basement of this house look like a room in a house, or did it look like?
It looked similar to the one in Princeton. It was dark. There were round poles, I believe. It was cement. The walls were sort of. It wasn't a room that you would be in. It was a room that you'd store boxes in and things like that.
It was like a storage area, not a living area.
Yes.
So it was an unfinished basement.
Yes.
Okay. Now, did something occur that you remember when you lived in that house having to do with the basement?
Yes.
Okay, would you tell us what happened?
I was downstairs in the basement with my mom, and I don't remember what she was doing. We were getting some things, and at one point she started to leave, and so I was following after her, and she started going up the steps, and so I started going up the steps with her, but she was further ahead from me. I was walked slow, and then as she got to the top of the stairs, she closed the door and she shut off the lights.
Now, was she inside the basement when she closed the door and shut off the lights?
No, she was outside.
And where was the switch for the lights? Inside the basement or outside?
Outside.
Okay, so at that point, she's outside the basement. Where are you?
I'm inside the basement at the top of the stairs.
Now, Mr. Menendez, you know how old you were when you lived at that house on Mill Road in West Windsor?
I guess I was 7. That's the years that I lived there.
You lived there 1 year.
Yes.
Okay, so what happened after your mother went out and closed the door and turned off the light?
I started hearing a noise.
Before you heard the noise, did you do anything?
Well, I was pounding on the door, begging my mom to open up the door
Why?
because it was dark. It was pitch black, and I was very scared.
Were you afraid of the dark when you were little?
Yeah, I was terrified of the dark.
Did your mother know that? Had she been told?
Well, she was told by me.
That's what I mean.
Yes.
Okay, so after you're pounding on the door, you hear a noise?
Yes.
And where's the noise coming from?
Inside the basement.
Are you at the top of the stairs at this point?
I'm at the top of the stairs, and the noise is coming from the inside the basement in the back.
Below you?
Yeah.
Okay, what kind of noise is it?
It was like a ghost noise.
What's a ghost noise?
Like a ooh, ah, that kind of
Okay,
thing.
right?
Mhm.
And how
Sorry,
did that
that
make
comes
you feel?
It comes across a little silly.
Terrified me. I didn't know what it was, and I was really scared of it. And I started banging on the door.
Did you say anything while you were banging on the door?
Yes, I was begging for my mom to open up the door because there was something in the basement.
When you say you were begging your mom, do you know what
I was saying, "Please open up the door. Please open up the door."
were you calling out her name or mom or?
I don't remember.
Okay, so then what happens?
And the noise started getting closer, and I heard a box move. I heard something move in the basement, and it was getting closer. And I remember the feeling of the chills all over my body as it was getting closer, and I would hear it get closer, and I was pounding on the door and pounding on the door, and it just got closer until it was at the bottom of the stairs.
And eventually what happened?
I heard the footsteps coming up
Okay.
the stairs.
Came
And-
up the stairs?
Yes, and then it just jumped at me with a big yeah.
And what was it?
It was my dad.
It was your father.
Yeah.
And when he jumped at you, what did you do?
I screamed. I panicked.
You screamed.
And I just held my hands up in the air.
What happened after that?
He started laughing.
He started laughing?
Yes.
And what happened with respect to the door and the light?
My mom opened up the door and turned on the light.
And what was she doing?
She was laughing.
And then I take it, did you start laughing too?
No, I was crying, and I just wanted to get out of the basement.
Now, do you recall when you were living in the Pennington house, another incident when your parents frightened you together?
Yes.
When you were living in the Pennington house, Mr. Menendez, I think you previously testified you would have nightmares.
Yes, I had a lot of nightmares.
How would these nightmares come and go?
They would come for months at a time. For 2 months, 3 months, I would go to bed every night knowing I was going to have the same nightmare. And I would say to my mom, I can't go to sleep tonight. I'm gonna have the dream. And she was saying, no, you got to go to sleep. You got to go to sleep. It'll be fine. And I was saying, I can't get to bed.
Now, would there be a time, if you had the nightmare for 2 or 3 months every day, would there be a time when you wouldn't have the nightmares at all for a while?
Yes.
Now, was there some ritual that you worked out for the 2 or 3 month time when you were having the nightmare, something that had to be done every night before you could get into bed and try to go to sleep? Excuse me?
Sustained. The next question.
Was there something you would do during these 2 or 3 month periods before you'd go to bed at night?
Yes.
What would you do?
I would check every drawer, every closet underneath the bed,
Check for what?
check for the monsters in my dream, make sure there was nothing in there. There was no one hiding.
And did your mother get involved in this?
Sometimes.
And how did she know about this?
Well, because sometimes I'd be too scared to check it on my own, and I would want her there.
Had you told her about the nightmares?
Yes.
Had you told her about the checking?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall on an occasion when you wanted to do the checking that your mother was with you?
Yes.
Okay. Would you tell us about that occasion?
She was sitting on the bed, and I was going around to check the doors. I wanted her to do it, but she was saying, no, you do it. You got to be brave. You have to get old and be able to do these things yourself. And so I was checking the drawers, and I went to the closet, and I opened up the closet, the right closet, and this thing came down at me, and I jumped back.
What was the thing that came down on you?
It was a mask of a witch, this green mask.
And was that something you knew you had in the house?
No,
You had never seen it before?
no.
And what happened after the mask fell down from the closet on you?
My dad came out of the doorway and started laughing.
The doorway to your room?
Yes, he was apparently around the corner.
Hiding?
Yes.
And what did you do after your dad started laughing?
I just looked at my mom and I was crying. I just ran out of the room,
Where'd you run to?
downstairs into the room next to the door.
Did that room next to the door have a particular name?
It was called the green room.
And eventually, did you see your mother in the green room?
Yes.
And did she say anything to you while you were in there?
Yes.
What were you doing in the green room after you'd run out of your bedroom?
I was crying in the corner.
And what did your mother say to you when you saw her in the green room?
She said that she was sorry, but I had to be brave and had to get rid of these dreams and confront these dreams and to be strong, that I can't cry my way through this.
Had you ever told your mother that?
This is one of those that's like, you can also get into different parenting styles and parenting techniques. There's tough love, there's super empathy. There are, in the context of this trial and everything else that we've heard, it just sounds like more torture, more abuse, right? That's what it sounds like. I think that if this were in the context of an otherwise loving and healthy home, this may not have been so much of an issue. I mean, unless there's some part that like my attention lapsed and and there's something much more egregious that for some reason I didn't absorb in what he just described. But it's I do understand some parents are more of the type to be like, you've got to confront your fears so that you can move head on, but making it so that someone's the butt of the joke. That's not ideally the way to do it. I mean, I also don't want to say like this is how a parent should be when I'm not a parent myself. Because plenty of people have all kinds of ideas of how a parent should parent until they become one. So yeah. Anyway.
One of the recurring figures from your dreams was a green face.
Oh, yes, she knew about my dreams.
Now, did these episodes when your parents frightened you together make you a less fearful child?
No, not at all.
Did they make you brave?
No.
Was there something else your father would do on a regular basis with respect to the family car that frightened you?
Yes.
And what would your father do in the car that would frighten you?
He would put his knees on the steering wheel and steer the car toward the side of the road, usually a big ditch or a big fall off drop, and tell me he wasn't going to turn the wheel.
And what would happen?
And the car would be going right toward the side of the road off the cliff or the ditch.
And would your mother be in the car when he was doing this?
Sometimes.
And how would you react to him doing that?
I would be screaming and saying, turn the car, and he'd be playing with his knees and not turning the car. Basically, he was waiting for me to turn the car at one point.
Wait, he was waiting for you to, how were you going to do that?
To grab the steering wheel.
Okay. Well, were you sitting in front?
Sometimes I was sitting in front, sometimes I was sitting in the back seat, and I'd jump over and I would grab the steering wheel. I knew eventually that all I had to do was grab the steering wheel and he would turn the car, that he was just waiting to see how long I would go before we went into the ditch.
So why didn't you do it right away? Why didn't you grab the steering wheel right away?
Because I wanted my dad to be proud of me, and I wanted to make him seem like I was brave and that I could do this, and I didn't have to turn the steering wheel, and that I wasn't afraid.
But you always did, didn't you?
Oh, yes. I eventually always did.
Well, if you hadn't turned the steering wheel, do you think your father would have driven the car into the ditch, or do you think he would have stopped it?
Oh, he would have stopped. I mean, I didn't think so at the time, but I know now he would have stopped.
So what made you scream and grab the steering wheel?
Because he would get too close to the ditch, and I would think that he was really going to go into the ditch. And so I would scream, either jump over the seat or just grab the steering wheel and try to turn it.
Now, did your mother ever stop this when she was in the car?
No.
And how did it make you feel, this experience? Was this pleasant?
No, it scared me.
And did your father do this more than once?
Yes, he did it many times.
And did it scare you less each time?
It didn't scare me as much as the first time or the second time, but as we started getting close to the ditch, it got really scary because I thought he was really going to go into the ditch when I was there.
So did
This
it,
is Vegas.
what period of years did your father do this, driving with his knees towards the ditch trick?
When I was 7, 8, 9, 10.
So it went on for quite a while.
Yeah, whenever he felt like it.
And every time it happened, was it the same kind of experience for you?
Yes.
Do you remember hearing Mrs. Goldsmith in this trial testify about a time that your father left you in a cemetery
Yes.
to toughen you up or make you brave?
Yes.
Do you remember the time you were in the cemetery?
No.
Were there other things that you remember your parents doing to try to toughen you up or make you brave?
Yeah, they would do all kinds of things.
Let's talk about your mother for a minute. How would your mother react or treat you if you were injured or ill?
She would just treat me, and
I don't understand what that means.
she would just clean up the wound.
And
And that's it.
would she ever say anything? I'm sorry, you feel bad. How does it feel, honey? Does this hurt?
No.
Did she ever call you honey, by the way?
No.
Did she ever call you by any pet name of any kind?
No.
What did she call you?
She called me Erik.
And did she call you other names, negative names?
Yes.
Mr. Menendez, do you have a scar on your left elbow?
Yes.
And do you know how you got that scar?
When I fell off a bike,
And how old were you when that happened?
5 years old, I guess.
5?
Maybe 6. I was in Muncie.
And was this a new bike, an old bike, what?
It was a brand new bike.
Excuse me?
It was a brand new bike.
Did you hear your cousin Alan testify to watching your father doing something with you on a bike?
Yes.
Did that sound familiar?
Yes.
Do you remember those bike riding training sessions with your father?
Yes.
Did those kinds of things, this thing that your cousin Alan described with you being pushed down the hill into the cul-de-sac,
Yes.
did that happen more than once?
Yes.
And do you remember the specific occasion on which you got the scar on your left elbow?
Yes.
And would you tell us what happened? Actually, Your Honor, it's afternoon.
All right, we'll recess until 1:30, ladies and gentlemen. Don't discuss this case with anyone. Don't form any final opinions about it, and we'll resume at 1:30.
Okay, so actually, I think that we're gonna cut it off there for today, because otherwise this is gonna be a very long one. So we're gonna have to cut this into 2 pieces. So thank you so much for joining me today, you guys. This has been a very, very interesting session in Erik's testimony. Hearing more about like these other details outside of the SA of like how his parents sort of treated him growing up, how, how they sort of wanted to toughen him up in these various ways, so it's just I just feel so bad. I feel so bad for him personally. I believe what he's saying. It all comes across with sincerity, in my opinion. I know not everyone agrees, and I respect the fact that not everyone does. But Sandy, thank you so much for gifting 5 Legal Bites memberships. Michelle is it Petrovich or Petrovic? Either way, welcome to Bite Club. Culperistic, Rocky is here, and James Woolard. You have all been gifted memberships by Sandy. So, and also Sokotoa as well. So welcome to Bite Club, all of you. Hope to see you on Friday at our members only live stream, our super casual one. Mr. Bites closed my office door. I normally like have it open so that the pets can wander in and out, and Mr. Bites closed the door and Holmes is on the other side trying to open it. At some point he's going to open it. He's just too smart for his own good. Anyhow, I hope that you guys enjoy this, or at least found it interesting or informative. It's kind of hard to enjoy this kind of a trial given the subject matter, all of the different levels of subject matter that we go over here. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me through this whole journey. It has been quite and I totally forgot to end this poll. Oh my gosh. Where do I here it is. Here's the button. So I asked earlier on in the session, do you believe Erik's account about Jose pounding on the door the night before the shootings? Because the reason why I asked that is because obviously this is something that Erik is telling. There's no one that can corroborate any of this because the only other people who could possibly corroborate it are no longer around. So I wanted to know what people thought about that. 83% said yes, I believe Erik's account. 16% said no, which is interesting. It's very interesting. So, okay. All right. Thank you once again for joining me. Thank you to all of the folks that are in the chat, that are commenting on replay, and those who are lurkers, either live or on replay. I appreciate every single one of you. And as always, thank you to the mods for helping to guide discussion in a way that is, that allows for disagreement for everyone. And, but, disagreement that is respectful. So, all right. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. And keep up or look out for a video I'm going to be uploading in the next day or so on Alec Baldwin, the new charges that are going to be dropped on him, in that case that has been resurrected seemingly in New Mexico. I've got an upload planned on that one. Should be up hopefully in the next day or so. And other than that, members, I'll see you on Friday. And to everybody else, I'll